Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about a champion today that I think is insanely underrated even in today's meta, and he definitely deserves a bit more love, and I hope that I can convince you guys of that as well. We are going to be talking about Skimfos the Consumed. This guy I've wanted to do a guide on for quite some time, but I'm just now getting around to it. He has 560 reviews, and as you can see across the board, everybody seems to be pretty high on him. So let's go ahead, let's take a look into his kit, and let's see what he does. Specifically, A1 attacks one enemy 2 times, the first hit having a 45% chance of placing a decreased speed, the second hit having a 45% chance of decreasing the target's turn meter by 10%. Already a very solid skill, right? This guy's void affinity. You don't have to worry about any sort of affinity matchup issues or anything like that. And essentially, if you need a decreased speed on a boss, this guy can land it for you. A2 AoE, 100% chance of placing a decreased attack for 2 turns. After attacking, he's going to transfer all debuffs except stuns, freeze, sleep, fear, true fear, provoke, and petrification from all allies to this champion. So think decreased speeds, decrease attack, decrease defense, weaken, presumably the berserk debuff, all those sorts of things, right? He's going to basically just suck into himself and say, hey, I'm taking all these off the team. He can be great for survivability and everything like that, because if you don't have decreased defense on your team, they're going to survive a lot more efficiently, right? Now, you might be wondering, why the hell do we want all those debuffs on him? Well, first of all, it's a pseudo cleanse, which means that he's a damage dealing champion, an epic level that can also cleanse your team, right? It's such a good role in your team that I couldn't even think of how to properly articulate it. That's how good this guy is. A3 gets even better. He's going to transfer all debuffs from this champion to a target enemy, then attacks the target. Not only that, he steals 100% of the target's turn meter if this attack is critical. And keep in mind, he is a void affinity champion. It's always going to be critical unless you're hitting into, a reaction or something like that inside the arena. But he is not really a PvP champion, so you don't need to worry too much about that. And it gets even better still. Heals this champion by 5% of their max HP for each debuff on them at the start of each turn. So let's say he has 3 debuffs on him, he's going to heal by 15%, right? If this champion is under 4 or more debuffs at the start of the turn, places an increased attack and increased crit damage buff on this champion for 2 turns. So he's taking the debuffs from everybody. He's saying, hey, I'll help you guys out, right? Let's think decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed, and maybe decreased attack. There's your 4 debuffs, right? He has those 4 debuffs. He's going to place the increased attack and the increased crit damage on himself. His A3, he transfers all those debuffs to a target enemy, a target head in Hydra or something like that, which is absolutely fantastic. Then he still goes in, attacks them, steals 100% of their turn meter, which is insane for progressing inside, for example, Fire Knight Normal, for Doom Tower, certain bosses, like I'm going to show you here today. This guy is so damn good. And he also has an aura of ally attack in Doom Tower battles by 30%. So as you can see, this guy is incredibly strong. That being said, what kind of masteries do you want on him? Well, I have emergency heal. I don't even recall if I have a blood shield accessory on him. I do, so I'm essentially just helping his survivability. The reason being, when he attacks somebody, blood shield is going to place a very minute shield on him. And then as soon as that shield gets broken, he's going to be healing by 3% of his max HP, which certainly does help the consistency of some runs. In terms of aesthetic, this guy is super unique, and he is a super cool looking champion. He's got kind of, half his face missing. He's got that like Two-Face sort of thing going on, which looks really cool. And just overall, this guy looks absolutely insane. He could 100% be a legendary champion based on looks alone. Maybe even like a mythical, right? Like Carnage doesn't look too far off from this guy. I'm going to go take a look actually real quick. Like Carnage is basically just, in terms of visuals at least, he's the souped up version of Skimfos the Consumed, right? Like he's got kind of very much the same aesthetics going on. He's got the 2 wings, right? He's got a metal plate on his face which prevented it from getting torn off like it did to Skimfos, unfortunately. He quite literally just is Skimfos, but less beat down, if that makes sense, right? He's got his full length skirt on and everything like that. Skimfos, though, fantastic champion. Let's go ahead and talk about the blessings you'd want on him if you're not running emergency heal. I would highly recommend you to run this guy inside Phantom Touch. The reason for that being he's going to be useful in a lot of targeted boss content. So, for example, Dark Fae, Fire Knight Normal, those sorts of things, and Phantom Touch is really going to help you to increase your damage output, as well as for, of course, Fire Knight, it's going to give you that additional hit on the shield. If you're not doing that, You could run him inside Cruelty. He does have a decent amount of AoE, right? The decreased speed means he's going to cycle his turns a little bit quicker and then get more procs of Cruelty off against bosses as well. And then, of course, Nature's Wrath would actually be fantastic on this guy too, because all things considered, he is going to be placing quite a few debuffs on enemies. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about masteries here. So as you can see over on this side, I do have him built out inside War Master, and I did, of course, also get Methodical on him because he's using his A1 a lot, so I want it to ramp up. I do also have Master Hexer on him, so he's going to have a chance to increase the duration of any debuff he's placing on the enemies. And then I have Evil Eye, which is going to decrease their turn meter further. In terms of the build, I just want to preface this by saying that this is an old build and I haven't had to update him. We got 33,000 HP, 4,100 attack, 245 on the speed, and 131 on the crit rate. Now that is way more crit rate than you need. 155 on the crit damage, and then 431 on the accuracy. 431 is definitely good for this champion for anywhere you might be using him, I would say, unless you're using him in like hard stages of Centranos or something like that. This guy is absolutely sensational though, and I didn't bring him into a specifically damage dealing build because I wanted to give you guys a realistic look at what this guy can do. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into Dark Fae here, and as you can see, this is almost an entirely free-to-play friendly team. So from left to right, we have Allure here, who is very useful for her turn meter control. You could easily replace her with another Skimfos or something like that. We then have Skimfos, who is a Void Epic Champion. Most people will be able to acquire him with enough shard pulls. We then have Newt in the middle, who is a fusion. We have Yakarl, who's available for free from the clan shop, I believe it is. And then we have Eustrid, who was another fusion as well. So essentially, everybody should be able to run this team. If you don't have an Allure, you can replace her with a Cold Heart as well. I mean, hell, if you're here looking at my Dark Fae team, you can also replace Skimfos with a Cold Heart, right? And it'll still work perfectly fine. But we're just going to work our way through here. Essentially, the presets are set up so that they're just doing a lot of CC and stuff like that to keep these guys from taking their turns as much as possible. And then once we actually get to the boss, they'll just be doing a lot of turn meter control, AoE nukage, those sorts of things. One thing I want to call out too, this is completely unrelated to the current video, but Quintus is actually very, very good for Dark Fae, it seems. So I've been using him inside the hard rotation of Dark Fae on City of Centranos when it pops up, and his damage there is actually astronomical. Like, he can take out the mirrored version quite easily when I switch over my Wukong build to him, which is very, very nice. So he is a pretty fantastic champion, all things considered. We're slowly just working our way through to the boss here. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is a 100% success rate team. I used to have a team that wasn't quite so successful at doing this, but I went ahead and I rebuilt it, and now everybody's got a little bit more damage and good things going on, so it seems like we get this done a lot more efficiently. So you can see Newt comes in there and is just absolutely decimating the boss. We are going to get a mirror copy taken of Yakarl, but as you can see, Skimfos just comes in, steals his turn meter, cycles his turn. This guy is absolutely insane. Not only is he stealing turn meter, right, which is already just crucial on its own, but he also has a decreased turn meter on the A1, and then a decreased speed as well, decreased attack, helping your team's survivability. And the fact that he steals the turn meter and doesn't just do like Cold Heart does, where she reduces the turn meter, right, is just the difference, because he can come in, like in Armand's, he can take that turn meter, and he can use it to so much more effectively cycle his own turns that it's just absolutely ridiculous. You can see he's out-cycling almost everybody else on my team, even though his speed is not as high as some of these champions. So he can definitely help to carry you, I would say, in a lot of content. You don't even necessarily have to fully book him, because considering that turn meter steal, he's going to get through his turns quicker, which means the cooldowns don't necessarily matter as much, which makes him so important and so useful for people who might just be starting the game and people who might not have the resources to throw at a whole lot of champions, right? And for this particular purpose, with Dark Fae at least, you could very easily run him at 5 stars as well, at maybe even at 4 stars, depending. You got to make sure that you go first, though, and that she really just never gets a turn to hit your team. So as long as he can do that, basically whatever star rank, you can certainly use him. And he gets work done. And as you can see, he still does a very acceptable level of damage, right? So Yakarl, the legendary version of him who is built for damage, did 619,000. He did 476. Now, we don't talk about Newt, on the other hand, who did 1.8, almost 1.9 million, right? But Newt is known to be one of the best single target boss killers in the entire game. So that would be a very unfair comparison, to say the least. So that being said, though, I hope this guide, or I hope this showcase, really helped to sell you on Skimfos and just how good of a champion he is. I'd like to see more people using him, talking about him, and enjoying him, because he sat in my vault for a while before I realized just how incredibly strong he is. That being said, as always, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.